Hello, meteorologist Nathan Scott. Welcome to the final episode of WeatherWise for 2025. And it's only fitting that we go over each month in detail to talk about the significant weather events that impacted us here in the natural state. Let's start off with January because we did receive snow in January. I'll get more into that in just 1 second. But here are some fun facts. The highest temperature in January, that was 66, and this is all for Little Rock now. On January 5th, the lowest temperature, 13. We reached that January 20th and 22nd, and you saw the snow. You see the snow on the map here. Little Rock received 2.6 inches of snow on January 9th, and then we saw another 6.4 inches of snow on the 10th. And that did add up, especially over the Ouachitas, where they saw about 8 to 13 inches of snow extending from western areas of Pulaski County through Perry County, Garland County, Montgomery County, Scott County, and also Polk County. But there was certainly quite a swath of some heavy snow right across central Arkansas. Then those amounts really started to trail off once you got into southeast Arkansas because it mixed with more rain. So you only had a trace around Lincoln County, Cleveland County, and extending through Camden. We also had another trace of snow, maybe some ice, on January 20th and also the 21st. January also brought us the first tornado of the year, and that happened on the 5th in Lincoln County. We had 2 blasts of Arctic air, which happened January 6th through January 11th. The highs were only into the 30s, and the lows dropped down into the teens and 20s. Then Arctic blast number 2 came in the 19th through the 21st, brought us highs in the 20s and lows into the teens. So January, yes, we got cold. That's what we normally see here in the natural state, and the cold stuck around for parts of February. So here's a recap for the month of February now. The highest temperature at Little Rock was recorded February 8th. The mercury soared to 81 degrees. The lowest temperature, though, dropped down to 11 just a few short days later on February 20th. And you see right there, we had snow break out February 18th through the 19th. And there was about 0.7 inches of snow measured at Little Rock on February 18th and around a ½ inch of snow on February 19th. That third Arctic blast that came in was around February 18th through the 21st. It brought us highs into the 30s and lows dropped down into the teens and 20s. That was the coldest weather that we saw of the entire year. But then we had a huge warm up February 25th through the 28th. Temperatures soared into the 70s. We had no tornadoes during the month of February, but that all changed once we got into March. The weather pattern became much more active, and we saw some really warm air develop across Arkansas. In fact, March was the 6th warmest on record when you take the data and average out all the highs throughout the month. The highest temperature, 85 degrees on March 30th. Once again, this is at Little Rock Airport now. The lowest temperature, we only dropped down to freezing on March 6th. 19 out of 31 days were 70 degrees or higher. And then what happened during the middle of the month, we had a very violent tornado outbreak March 14th through the 15th. And I'm sure you remember this because this is when we had an EF3 go right through the community of 56 and carved a 117-mile path that lasted all the way into Missouri. That is one of the longest track tornadoes since February 8th, 2008. That's also the day that Cave City got impacted very severely. Most of the tornadoes from that event happened in northeast Arkansas. Other information, we also had tornadoes, but we also had wildfires. It was very dry. We lost quite a bit of soil moisture, and wildfires started to develop across the region, something we normally don't see during the month of March, but these were some big wildfire events that severely damaged the St. Joseph Center in North Little Rock and also produced a pretty nasty brush fire along Interstate 530, pretty close to Pine Bluff. In all, there were 15 tornadoes for the month of March. Once we got into April, the temperatures continued to warm. 88 was the highest temperature. That was on April 13th. The lowest temperature, 42 on April 9th. And April was a very wet month. In fact, it was the fourth wettest April on record, according to Little Rock statistics. We had almost 14 inches of rain, and there were some flooding events around April as well. There was the one flooding event pretty close to Calico Rock in Stone County. The White River flooded after one night of very much torrential downpours in that part of North Arkansas. It was like a boundary stalled out, and that produced a very heavy rainfall event in that part of the state. And then we got into May. So April produced 21 tornadoes, and also, before I forget, we had that bow echo make its way right through Little Rock. It was on a weekend, and it produced that nasty shelf cloud, that low-hanging, ominous shelf cloud. It brought winds of 75 to 80 mile per hour gusts across the region, and that did produce quite a bit of power outages and really got a lot of people's attention because it just developed right to the west of the metro and then started to bow out and produce those powerful winds that made their way through. I think it was Sunday morning. It was pretty close to Easter. Let's go into May now. The highest temperature for May, 89, May 14th. Lowest temperature of 48, May 4th, and there were 13 tornadoes during the month of May. Then the weather started to settle down. Of course, that's usually what happens because the jet stream goes back up to the north and we don't have that wind energy in place. And typically you just have a ridge of high pressure, and that provides us with a lot of heat, a lot of humidity. So therefore, your tornado count really starts to go down and your temperatures really start to go up. We had the first 90-degree day at Little Rock on June 3rd. The first 95-degree day was June 22nd. We did have 9 tornadoes in June, which is kind of abnormal. We usually don't see as many tornadoes during the month of June. And also, the first tropical storm of the season developed on June 24th, and its name was Andrea. In July, the highest temperature, 99 degrees. We hit it July 22nd, the 29th, also the 30th. The lowest temperature, 71, that's it, on June 14th. And August, we got up to 102. The highest temperature, the 18th and 19th. The lowest temperature, 61, August 27th, 28th. The number of 100-degree days we had were 3, so August was a toasty month. And we had a bout of some heavy rainfall on the 28th that produced almost 5 inches of rain at Little Rock Airport. There were no tornadoes in August, and there were no tornadoes in July either here in the natural state. September, highest temperature 95 degrees on the 13th, lowest temperature 56 on the 8th and 9th. No tornadoes in September. When you break down the 90-degree days, that's going to be coming up in the next segment. But let's go into October now. The highest temperature 89. So even though you're thinking, okay, it's fall, no, it can still get hot here during the fall season. The lowest temperature 41. That was on the 31st. The highest temperature, that was on the 2nd. And it was getting dry in October. We saw a departure of rainfall about to 1.6 inches. And of course, the big weather story for October was the devastating impacts from Hurricane Melissa that hit West Jamaica. And of course, they're still recovering from that Category 5 hurricane that happened in October. The last tornado was also recorded in October. That was October 8th. And all year long, we've had 60 tornadoes across Arkansas. So that is well above the average, which is 37. November, highest temperature was 81 degrees on the 18th. The lowest temperature, 29. That happened November 10th and the 11th. And this was the 7th warmest November record according to the monthly mean average. So you take the average of all the highs and lows, and then you average that out, and you get a number, and that makes it the 7th warmest November on record for that statistic. Also, we had something really cool happen in November that had nothing to do with weather. It happened above us. It was astronomy. The northern lights were seen as far south as Mexico, November 11th. That is certainly a sight that we do not see very much here in the south, but that's just because the sun is still going through a very active solar cycle, producing a lot of sunspots that allow for solar flares and the plasma from the sun to make its way towards Earth because the sun's so active. But that solar cycle will continue to diminish year by year, so our chances here in seeing the northern lights that far south will be going down over the next few years. And now we're in December. This was recorded, by the way, December 26th. So the lowest temperature that we've seen so far is 22 degrees, and the highest temperature, that's 77, and that was just reached a few days ago. We did have a little bit of sleet, and we had a little bit of freezing rain December 1st. They saw a dusting to around a half inch of snow on the 4th. That was in the Ozarks, mixed with a little bit of sleet, and we primarily had rain here in central Arkansas. So that is a month-by-month recap. I had to go through things pretty quickly there, but now when we come back, we're going to go through the average temperatures for each month and see how that evolved, and also the rainfall and where we stand on rainfall for the year. Stay tuned. Well, for this next recap, we're going to be talking about the average temperatures and how they compare to where they should be for each corresponding month. And when we talk about average temperatures, you add up all the highs and you add up all the lows, and then you take the average of those to get your average monthly temperature. So let's take a look at the graphic here. You see a lot of red, you see a lot of blue. What you see here on the top line, that is where the monthly temperature should be. That's the average monthly temperature. And then this bar graph shows what the average monthly temperatures actually were. So we had 2 months that we were below average. Surprise, surprise. And this has not been happening very often. Like usually the entire year has been above average, but we had those Arctic blasts that knocked down the numbers significantly, and therefore we ended up with below average monthly temperatures. So January was 37.5. That's a departure about 3.2 degrees. February, your average temperature is 45.2, and we had a departure around just about a half inch. So or half degree. That's not really significant for February, but certainly it's a big difference in January. And then once we got into March, we had early spring. Things were blooming well ahead of where they should be, about a couple weeks. And we had really warm weather for March. And then we continued to make its way through the rest of the year where temperatures were above average. So we were still well above average going into the summertime months, and the temperatures continued to heat up. June was 3.3 degrees above average, and you can see that comparison right there, 81.3 compared to 78. July was also significantly above average with 85.1 degrees compared to 81.4. So that is a departure about 3.7 degrees. August, we were almost on target, but then we were still above average September, October, and also into November. As you see, November really stands out like a sore thumb because we had a departure of 5 degrees for the month of December, and we started out December well below average. But now, since the weather patterns flipped, we have seen those numbers rebound and will likely, I think, end up with above average temperatures for the month of December. Let's talk about rainfall now. This is the same type of chart. You're looking at average rainfall compared to what actually fell, and this is for Little Rock. Can't do the entire state, but it gives you an idea of what happened because April was very wet. We had 13.96 inches of rain compared to we should be at 5.59 inches of rain, and usually April is your wettest month on average, followed by May and also December. Look what's been happening though. Throughout the fall season and the winter season, our rainfall rates have really started to fall behind. And December, if we don't see significant rain this weekend, which would be the 28th and the 29th time frame, because there's going to be a front moving through, we will end up as one of the driest Decembers on record. Right now, it's the fourth driest, but that rain that's expected to move in here for Sunday, and again, this is recorded on December 26th, may bump us out of being the driest top 5 Decembers, but something we'll be watching. Now, let's take a look at your rainfall across the entire state, looking at different observations here. And we have seen departures throughout the year that continue to add up. So it's a wide range. And this is looking at the entire year. So Fayetteville has a surplus over 11 inches. Fort Smith surplus. DeQueen surplus. Texarkana not as high of a surplus, but still surplus nonetheless, around 2 inches. And then it's almost a 3 1/3 here in Little Rock, but Pine Bluff is seeing a deficit of 3 2/3. And then you see significant deficits happening in El Dorado and also Greenville, with more surpluses in Northeast Arkansas. That takes into account all the rainfall that we've seen throughout the year compared to average. But we've dried things out recently. And what that has done has allowed for a short-term drought situation to develop. So this is the newest drought information that came out earlier this week. And you see, we're looking at the rainfall deficits since the beginning of December. So you're thinking, okay, this is what we're going to go into 2026 with, deficits that amount to a short-term drought. Because right now, nothing's really going to change until we get into January. We may see a wet weather pattern really start to evolve getting into January. There are signs of that happening. But you see deficits all across the entire state of Arkansas. And then along with that, I've got the drought monitor here. And we have severe drought from White County, Jackson County, into Independence County, Lawrence County, up through parts of north central Arkansas. A moderate drought, including a large part of central Arkansas, and then that drought lessens the farther west that you are. So hopefully we get some rain soon, because we definitely need it. When we talk about your 95, 90, and 100-degree days throughout the entire year, they came in like this. Usually we have 76 90-degree days and 8 100-degree days. So for this year, we ended up with 83 90-degree days compared to last year's 88, and then 34 days hit 95 or higher compared to 39 of last year. And we had 3 triple-digit days. Last year, we had 7. So this year, I don't think was as brutal as what we saw last year. Another thing that was really interesting this year is the tornado count. Look at all the tornadoes that were confirmed across the state. Our average is 37. And you see the breakdown. 9 were EF0, 34 were EF1, but we had 11 EF2 tornadoes, which are considered strong. We had 3 EF3 tornadoes, and then 2 EF4 tornadoes, violent tornadoes. We don't usually see violent tornadoes here in Arkansas. So this was a very busy tornado season. We were going from a La Nina to a neutral when we talk about the El Nino Southern Oscillation that you always hear of, and that certainly probably played a part in what happened for the spring season. But by far the worst of the weather impacted our friends and family in northeast Arkansas. You see that cluster of tornadoes right over Jonesboro, Wynne, into Craighead County, into Poinsett County, but the red dots, or the red symbols, that's where we had the EF4. So Stone County, 56, and then, of course, around Diaz, and made its way from White County towards Diaz. That was the EF4 in Jackson County. Here in central Arkansas, we had tornadoes, but they were primarily weak. I don't see too many strong tornadoes other than the one that did hit Clark County, and then down to the south. And they also had quite a bit of tornadoes in northwest Arkansas. It varies year by year. Sometimes it's central Arkansas that gets the brunt of the tornado activity, and sometimes it's southwest Arkansas, sometimes it's northeast Arkansas. There's no way we can exactly tell you what's going to be unfolding this far out. But yeah, hopefully 2026 will bring us less amount of tornadoes and weaker tornadoes if we have to have any. We're going to get tornadoes. You know, we always get tornadoes here in Arkansas, but to see the amount of violent and strong tornadoes was abnormal for 2025. One final thing, let's talk about your tropical weather summary, because it was an active hurricane season, but if you notice, all the tracks here stayed away from the lower 48. Barry made landfall in Mexico. Chantal was a tropical storm as it made its way from the west coast of Florida, but then impacted South Carolina and North Carolina. It never strengthened into a hurricane. All the hurricanes stayed out to sea for the most part, but it did impact once again. Melissa hit Jamaica with terrible, terrible results. But a lot of the storms made their way from the eastern Atlantic and then curved back out to sea just because we had troughs that kicked them out in that direction. Final thing here coming up on weather-wise, we're going to look ahead because we always get questions. Meteor season, meteor showers, what are we expecting for this year? Talk about what the conditions look like according to the moon phase, and also what astronomers are saying about the two biggest, most popular meteor showers, the Perseids and Geminids. And I think this year could be a great year to check out those showers. I'll have all the information you need to know on that coming up. I love weather, but I also love astronomy, and I love to check out a really good meteor shower. However, there's a lot of meteor showers that get a lot of hype, and it's just to basically be clickbait, because those pages that you look at and they share something, it looks so spectacular, you comment on it, you say anything to them, they're getting paid for whether it's good attention or bad attention. So I don't want to get your hopes up on something that's not going to happen. I want you to pay attention to basically 2 times this year that you do want to go outside and check out the night sky as long as skies are clear. But here's all the meteor showers that you will likely hear of throughout 2026, but a lot of them are pretty much skips because they don't produce many meteors per hour. Unless you're really patient, unless you really, really want to see a shooting star or a meteor, then you can go and check out these weaker showers. But if you want to have that experience of seeing 20, 30, 40, 50 meteors per hour, you got to get to a really dark location. That is rule number 1. You have to get away from any light pollution. You have to be patient. You got to stay outside 30 minutes to an hour. But some people, they like to camp out underneath the stars, and that's a great experience, especially in the Ozarks where there is hardly any light pollution. But you see the Lyrids, the Eta Aquarids, the Southern Delta Aquariids, they're all skips. And good reason too, the moon phase. It's going to be nearly full for most of those meteor showers. But the Perseids, now this one, I want you to write the date down. August 12th to the 13th. Let's hope we have clear skies. Let's hope we don't have a lot of humidity out there. Although it's August, that may be far reach, but the Perseids are very much promising because new moon, that means visibility will be great and you will see all sorts of meteors, not just the brightest ones. And yeah, you can see 50 or more. If you're out in the middle of nowhere, say Utah in the desert, you could easily see 100 meteors or more during this event, just because if you've never been out there, like the Arches National Park area or anywhere out in the middle of Utah, you have never seen the nighttime sky just be so breathtaking until you go out in that location. Then skip for the Orionids, the Leonids. The Leonids produce a meteor storm every so often, but not this year. The Geminids, that's going to be a good one too because the moon phase is going to be pretty much crescent. So 40 to 60 meteors, but that happens in December 13th through 14th. So we can have clouds. We had clouds in 2025 that ruined the show. And also it can be pretty cold. So I really want you to focus on the Perseids August 12th through the 13th. Of course, I'm going to give you reminders on my Facebook page. And we'll be talking about more on meteor showers and how you can view meteor showers coming up throughout the year. One last note. Got to talk about hurricane season because I forgot to mention this. Melissa, Category 5 Melissa, became one of the most powerful hurricanes on record in the Atlantic Basin, packing winds of 185 miles per hour. This statistic ties with Hurricane Dorian from 2019. That, remember, just sat over one island in the Bahamas, and the 1935 Labor Day hurricane. So hopefully 2026 we don't see any Category 5s that make landfall because, of course, they can have devastating impacts. Going into 2026, I want your ideas. Please let me know what you want me to talk about here on Weatherwise. You can reach out to me on my Facebook page or email me at nscott@thv11.com. I hope you have a great 2026 and start of the year. I'll see you very soon here on Weatherwise. Have a great day.